What's going on, guys? Yesterday we finally got a look at the new X-Men 97 series, and as a lot of you have been following the channel know that I have just become obsessed with year obsessed this year with the X-Men. And so this honestly couldn't have come at a better time, or has it? Because I have some things to talk about in this video. But first, let's talk about the positives of the trailer. And this trailer just got people hyped. It had well over 6 million views when I last checked it, and it was trending #1 all day yesterday, and I think into today as well. And boy, after just the X-Men being dead and people not talking about them for so long, this just really got people hyped up, and people were just loving the trailer and so excited about everything going on with it. But I have some caveats with it, and I want to bring those up here today. I'm very trepidatious about it. Now, if I had done this video yesterday right after the trailer had come out, I would have just come in here being hyped and just being so excited about everything happening, and just so happy to finally be excited for another Marvel project again after so much disappointment. So let me talk about the positives of the trailer and where I think that some of the criticisms about it I just don't ring true to me. So they're just really pulling out all the nostalgia stops with this. Like the trailer looks very action packed, and you see all the original characters again. And for the voice cast, we're going to talk a bit about the voice cast, but obviously the actor who played Cyclops in the 90s died. And so but when I was listening to the trailer, I was so shocked that the guy they got to replace him sounds almost just like him. I wouldn't put it past Disney to use a little AI tweaking to get that to that end, but whatever. It sounded amazing, and I was just so excited. Now, it was more of a teaser than an actual trailer, and it didn't reveal too much that you couldn't have already found out if you've been following the behind the scenes stuff. But one of the things that people criticize off the bat is the animation doesn't look great, and I have a problem with that because I think people are romanticizing the X-Men 90s series, because that series did not have great animation for the time either. If you follow the behind the scenes stuff of it, then you'll hear that it was not a series that Fox even really wanted to do, or that they had any faith in whatsoever. So they weren't given much of a budget at all, and that's why, like, even the theme song was done on a dated, like, MIDI system or something like that. And that's how we got that sort of sound. It was a cheap series, but it had people who were very competent with the writing of the series, and that's how they made it work. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But that is to say, I have no problem with this animation. Yeah, it looks kind of choppy. I like the designs of the characters overall, but it really, and I would wish that they would give things actual 2D animation rather than using these 3D filters and just putting filters around it. But I actually really like the way it looks, and I'm not expecting an X-Men series based on the 90s series to have a spectacular animation. First of all, we haven't been getting that from many series lately, but the 90s series never had that great animation in the first place, so I'm fine with that. Another criticism about it that people have been levying is, like, Storm's mohawk, and I know this was a controversial look for her ever since she first wore it, like, I think it was back in the 90s. I'm not bothered by it. Was it what I would prefer with the character? No, but I'm not bothered by it at all. Otherwise, it's like you've got all the characters back that I'm so excited to see. They did that scene, that fan servicey scene with Gambit charging Wolverine's claws, and I don't know if that's how it works. Gambit's powers are he charges things up kinetically and they explode. So how does that work with Wolverine's claws? Gambit's a character where they oftentimes misinterpret his powers, but whatever. It looked cool, people liked it, and I'm glad that Gambit is finally getting some love that he deserves, because he's been really shafted in animated appearances and even movie appearances for so long since the 90s series, and he is my second favorite X-Men character, so I'm glad that he's getting so much love. I do want to mention some of the voice casting caveats. All the original voice cast has returned, but some of original voice cast are voicing different characters. The one that got me was Chris Potter, who originally voiced Gambit, is voicing Cable this time, and they got a younger actor to voice Gambit, and I really don't like that, because Chris Potter has talked in the past about how much he loves voicing that character and how much he wanted to do more work on him. But Catherine Disher also is not coming back as Jean Grey, and it's been proposed that perhaps the reason why that's happening is that these are specific actors whose voices have changed too much over the years. Chris Potter is 63, Catherine Disher's voice has changed a lot. So if that's the case and they just wanted to compensate by giving these actors other roles that were more fitting, then I'm okay with that. I wish we had Lenore Zan and Chris Potter back as Gambit and Rogue, but it is what it is. Lenore Zan, though, she has definitely kept her Rogue voice, and she is the best voice for Rogue ever. We got a little snippet of her in this trailer that I really liked, but as always, it comes back to the story and what the writing is going to be, and that's what I want to talk about here today. Now, first of all, let's talk about the positives. The positives are, it does sound like there's some interesting concepts that they're working with going into this series from the get-go, that when the X-Men 90s series ended, Charles Xavier was almost assassinated, and he survived only because the Shi'ar took him and were able to use his medicine, but he had to go live on their planet instead. Shenanigans. If you don't get it, it's fine. But the point is, everyone on Earth thinks that Charles Xavier was assassinated, and apparently the premise of this show is that because of that, it creates a new sympathy for mutants, and so they start to become more acceptable, and this makes the X-Men start to question where they're going to go going forward, who they're going to be. Some of them, like Jean and Scott, want to have normal lives, and then they all come back together because of a supposed event that happens that forces them to regroup. So it sounds from the get-go that there are some interesting ideas that they're working with the show. We're apparently going to get more of Mr. Sinister. Madeline Pryor as the Goblin Queen is going to come in. There's going to be a storyline between Scott and Cable. These are all confirmed. There's going to be a video game episode with Jubilee and her boyfriend. Sunspot is her boyfriend in this series, I guess, and it's going to use some 16-bit animation. We've seen all that. So some of this sounds interesting, and from that perspective, and they're once again really leaning into the nostalgia of the series. They hyped me up again this morning when they showed the card for the series is actually an animated version of the very famous Jim Lee X-Men comic book lineup. So they're really pulling all the stops with the nostalgia and things that are references to the comics. And that's great, but that is where I have some caveats. And once again, I was hyped for this series. Like, Rogue is my favorite female superhero of all time. I already bought her action figure because I said I wasn't going to, because I wanted to see if I was going to like the show first, but then went ahead and bought it. But that's the problem. Now, here's the thing. And there's a problem with this series, a problem with everything that I've said, a problem with everything that seems to look good, and I'm going to show you what that problem is. Yeah. The problem is it's Disney Plus. And as I was saying about the original X-Men series, is that they didn't have a lot of resources, didn't have great animation, didn't have great sound, but they had writers who really knew what they were doing, and that is what saved the 90s X-Men series and what made it one of the most iconic cartoons of all time. And that is what I'm afraid of with this show, is the writing. And so I looked up some of the writers on this show, and the head writer is Beau DeMayo. And I was surprised on his IMDb page that he doesn't have many credits, actually. He's worked a bit on Strange New Worlds of Star Trek. Haven't watched that, haven't liked what I've seen of that. He did do 2 episodes of Moon Knight, and Moon Knight, along with WandaVision, is the one show that I would say has anything worth checking out. Not saying it's good, I'm just saying that there were elements there that were good. Episode 1 was good as an intriguer, and episode 5 had some good parts exploring Moon Knight's backstory. However, and that's what Beau DeMayo, the head writer of this show, has worked on. However, even with those episodes of Moon Knight, I would be like, this guy who's writing these episodes, he might have a future if he refines his craft and gets a lot more experience and works with other experienced writers. I would not say let's take this guy and make him the head writer on an entire show that is supposed to be a continuation of one of the most iconic cartoons of all time, the second most iconic superhero cartoon of all time. And there's where we get into some caveats. Also, the problem is, as I point out with Disney Plus, they haven't done one show that I actually think is well written. I mean, Andor, I haven't seen. People say that it has some good writing in it, but none of the writers from Andor that I know of are working on this show. But for years with Disney, it's been like, I get hyped for something. I give it the benefit of the doubt. What happened with WandaVision, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Falcon and Winter Soldier, The Mandalorian, all of these shows, giving the benefit of the doubt, hoping for the best and then just being disappointed over and over again. And here's why I would give them the benefit of the doubt is because their marketing would usually be great. That's what they did. Like Loki, that series, that had a great first trailer. I thought that show was going to be amazing, and it wasn't. WandaVision, great trailer. Falcon Winter Soldier, great trailer. Terrible, terrible, terrible movie. And then that's the same thing with Wish. I was like I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna stave off people's concerns, and then I was disappointed with that again. It's just like it's like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 987 times, shame on me. Like I can't. Like I was talking to my brother. He's a huge Marvel fan, and I'm like, "What do you think of the X-Men '97 trailer?" And he's like, "It's good." And I'm like, "Do you think the series is gonna be good?" He's like, "No, it's gonna be trash." And but he's right though, because that is what's happened so much with Disney. Like, the picture I was showing you where they're mimicking, they're basing it off of Jim Lee's X-Men '90s art. It looks great, and it just brings me all the emotions, especially since that's the run of X-Men that I've been rereading a lot lately. But that's what Disney's been doing. It's like Luke Skywalker appearing in The Mandalorian. They know how to jangle the keys. They know how to market things. They know how to, do the nostalgia and cameo brownie points. It's their actual writing, though, that suffers. And I started reading more about the series. It made me a little bit concerned. For example, my favorite character, obviously, from X-Men is Rogue. Second favorite character is Gambit. Love their relationship. And I was really, because in the comics, they go for entire relationship arcs. The animated series, even though it's probably their peak characterization, they never developed their relationship very far because their relationship was just getting started in the comics when the show was being developed. So X-Men '97 would be a perfect time to go forward with their relationship and do more with it. And they've confirmed that they're going to do more with their relationship in the show. Then I'm reading interviews, and it's like, yeah, we looked at their relationship and thought, how do we do it in a modern time? And between this telekinetic man and a woman who can't touch people. And I'm like, what do you mean do it in a modern time? Like, they already showed how this dynamic would work in the '90s show, and and you can watch that even if you aren't reading any of the comics that have dealt with this and done some pretty amazing character development with how that relationship would work. And that makes me worried. And before you say I'm overreacting, Gambit and Rogue, so many great comics, but recently they got married in the comics back in 2018, but recently they've changed their dynamics. So in the comics they're still together, thank goodness, but Gambit has just become like the stereotypical immature, dumb husband for Rogue to just barely tolerate and put up with, and that would never in a million years be their dynamic after all they've went through in the history of the comics. That was not their dynamic in the '90s show. That was not who the characters are. That's not who the character of Gambit is. So I'm worried, are we going to get something like that? Because, like, we're going to talk about the Avatar show soon, and remember what we got in interviews for that show where they're like, oh, well, the original Avatar, like, Sokka was too sexist. And I'm like, the original Avatar show was dealing with sexism. It was actually dealing with characters fighting it and growing out of it. Like, why would you believe that's a problem? But that's the problem with writing today, is like, things always need to be corrected. And when things need to be corrected and changed, like, and that just wrecks it. And that's you're changing things that don't need to be changed. I'm like, am I going to get the actual Gambit that I like, or are they going to change his character in some way? Was his relationship with Rogue too flirty in the original series or something? I don't know. And but once again, I'm just worried because we just don't have great writers anymore to handle this stuff. And talking about X-Men, we're going to have to talk about the social commentary aspect. And X-Men has a history with social commentary. When they first came out, it was merely because Stan Lee just didn't want to write superhero origin stories anymore, so he just created the mutants and therefore the X-Men. Later, it evolved to be about an allegory for a lot of different things. Racism in the '90s, they noted that it is sort of an allegory for the changes that teens go as they grow up and the struggles there. And so, like, there is absolutely no problem with exploring that, and I like seeing that explored. However, back in the day, they did it well. These days, when I read interviews with these writers, and I hope that I'm wrong, it's almost like they like the idea of what the X-Men represents. And I at one point I think they probably like the idea of the commentary that X-Men represents better than they actually understand how to do that commentary, because the X-Men 90s series used a lot of subtlety and it used a lot of nuance, and they just seem like so excited behind the scenes just how much commentary that they're going to do with this series. And I'm like, but are you going to be really ham-fisted? Are you going to be smart about it? Because, and you have to remember that X-Men isn't just commentary, it's fighting robots, it's going on missions and stuff that we see in the trailer, but how is the actual show going to play out? How is the character development going to play out? That's what has me concerned, that we don't have writers with the intelligence that they used to have back in the day. Like Nightcrawler, like he had just one of the best episodes. It's universally agreed upon, one of the best episodes in the original animated series that explored religion, and it did so in a very respectful manner. These days, would I trust that from Disney? Would I trust Disney to even allow them to explore a topic like religion in a Disney Plus show? No, I wouldn't. The 90s show was rare even for its time in the terms of the topics that it tackled and how it did them. Yes, but it was like a rare gem at that. I'm not expecting them to be able to recreate that a second time. And if it was any other company, if this was even Fox doing a revival of X-Men, then I would have more faith in it. Like the Animaniacs, they did a revival of that show and people said that was pretty good. I don't think it lasted very long, but people said it was pretty good. But Disney has a track record where they have the worst writers, the worst behind the scenes creative process. And so it's like, is it possible? The best that they've had, even like, you think of Marvel's What If, like they had maybe 2 episodes in that entire series that were even passable. It's like, you'll get some passable stuff that maybe has elements that might be okay from Disney Plus content, but nothing really stellar that would stand out. So, but I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong, but I've been spurned so much by Disney products. I think that I would be a fool if I really allowed myself to get hyped for this show. Will I watch it? Yes. But right now, my expectations are going to be tempered because it is Disney Plus, and because I do not expect that we have a new crop of writers that really understands how to do this material. So I'm sorry to be a little downer on that, and I would have been very hyped about the show yesterday right after the trailer came out, but I need to be realistic about this, where it's coming from, because I don't want to be suckered in yet again to something that I love, because this is why I was really getting back into the X-Men this year. It's because they were the one property that hasn't been tainted by anything, and now I feel like this could be one that actually does it for the X-Men, right as I'm just getting back into them and really enjoying them. And this show would be important just to see like how much popularity the X-Men could have going forward in the MCU, and I just am kind of expecting to like be punched in the face by it again and have some sort of character assassination, some sort of something that taints the original show in some way. And I just don't want to leave myself open to be punched in the face again. I want to be expecting the worst. So I expect to be disappointed, and you will never be disappointed. That's the attitude I'm taking. But am I wrong? Are you guys really hyped? Are you trusting Disney Plus this time? Or do you agree with me that expectations need to be kept very, 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 very low? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.